So Hosea 5:15. I will return again to my place until they acknowledge their guilt and seek my face, and in their distress they seek me, saying, and then it goes into chapter 6 of Hosea. But I think I just lost my place. In Song of Solomon, because it's something that like is in my head all the time, chapters 5 and 6. We have her resting in her bed. Her feet are bathed and anointed, and she's like all perfectly at rest. And he's knocking on the door, and she finally decides to get up when she realizes she's crazy for just laying there. And she gets up. I opened to my beloved, but my beloved had turned and gone. My soul failed me when he spoke. I sought him, but found him not. I called him, but he gave no answer. That Song of Solomon 5:6, which is so much like Hosea 5:15, saying, I will return to my place until they acknowledge their guilt and seek my face. Mm-hmm. And in their distress, they'll seek me. And as we go through Song of Solomon 5, we see that she quite does become in distress, and she becomes abused and taunted, and all these things are going on.
Where is your God? If he's God, why isn't he saving you?
Well, funny you should mention, because Song of Solomon 6:1, where's your beloved? Where is he gone, O fairest of women? Is this a taunt or is this a true question? It's hard to say, but where has your beloved turned that we may seek him? Why do they ask that? Because she just gave this beautiful description in chapter 5 of what he is, recalling everything that she loves about him, to the point that these other women who are considered her friends say, where is he? Because now even we want to find him. And the funny thing is, being a woman, she knows I better not say out loud, because I just realized where he is, and I told Chuck Bean, I was like, she's probably like, oh, I think he's over there, and then starts running and goes to the garden. In Song of Solomon 6:2, my beloved has gone down to his garden. And of course, there's all kinds of significance there that it plays, not only in Song of Solomon, but all the way back in Genesis, when you walk together with God and you felt no shame, and you're in purity and righteousness and full relationship with God in the garden.
There I will return her vineyards.
Yeah.
And you have in Hosea 5:15, when they acknowledge their guilt and seek my face, and in their distress they seek me, and he's promising that he will be heard from at that point. And so Song of Solomon chapter 6, she seeks him and remembers he has gone to his place.
What I like about this is that you can even take that and put in that corporate expression we were talking about, the mystery of godliness. And what is it that Paul tells us in Romans 11, that the whole purpose of the casting off the branches was? That you might drive them to jealousy. And so there is this jealousy where she's remembering the husband of her youth because he's allured her into the wilderness, and they're seeing this demonstration. It's driving them to jealousy to where the nations are asking, well, tell us about this man. Why is he so special? And she goes through this beautiful description of the husband of her youth, and here it is, that because she's remembering him as he is, and the beautiful things that he's done for her through the years, and she's recognizing he was the one who gave us the grain and the new wine and the oil. And she's recognizing it. She's now saying, she's recognized that she's now saying, come, let us return to the Lord, for he is torn, but he will heal us. He is stricken, but he will bind us.
Right.
And after 2 days, he will revive us, and on the 3rd day he will raise us up. So let us know and let us pursue the knowledge of God.
And you also, like, I'm not sure exactly which chapter it is in there, but it culminates with, who is this coming up from the wilderness, leaning on her beloved?
That's
that is
chapter
just,
8, right?
It comes, I was thinking it came later here in 6. It does return again in 8. There's a
Okay.
couple.
Okay.
Song of Solomon likes to give the teaser and then move you forward and then give the fuller. So it's lots of beautiful things. Later in 6, you have her being swept off. She went to see if the nut orchard in 6:11. I went down to the nut orchard to look at the blossoms of the valley, so much like Jeremiah seeing the almond bloom. That was the first thing that the Lord showed him. So to see whether the vines had budded, whether the pomegranates were in bloom. And before I was aware, when she's still going to check, my fancy set me in a chariot beside my prince. So that's the first reference. And then in chapter 8, we have a later reference also coming to that same thing.
But
really beautiful.
I guess what I like about chapter 8, who is this coming up from the wilderness, leaning upon her beloved? I awakened you under the apple tree. There your mother brought you forth. There she who bore you brought you forth. And it's again that Zion's travail kind of thing.
Yeah.
You daughter of Zion.
Yeah.
So one more thing we can find in Song of Solomon, chapter 5 and 6, when she's describing how beautiful he is, how much she loves him, what is she describing except his body? And not to be that uber vain thing, but when you take it back and you talk about we throw down the accuser of the brethren, we no longer work for him, we don't identify with him,
It's a corporate
and we
expression.
talk about how beautiful the body is. That causes her to remember where he is, how much she loves him, that whole spiel. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, from there, we just need to take a break because, oh my gosh, just let that just tingle all the way through for a minute, you know? In case you weren't fool enough already.
Well, it certainly brings the challenge, of it's not just a matter of theological fancifulness, but it brings that challenge of, okay, but even now, how is it that we're relating to the saints of old? How is it we're relating to the saints that we're with?
Well, how about we, the 3 here, we have so much heard about community, and community will be a necessity in the last days, and it will be painful, and it will be this and that, but what if it's the most beautiful, reasonable thing that there is, and if we can be together and not work for the accuser of the brethren, that is what drives the jealousy.
And daily having conversations like this.
Yeah.
I think we could.
And therefore, and because we're seeing it as beautiful to be with the brethren instead of a labor and a suffering before it's glorious.
Right.
But we see it's beautiful.
Right.
And we and we delight to do like that there's something about holding one another in love despite our failures and all this, but that we hold one another together in love and truth until there is a manifestation of the reality that's been eternally true and will eternally be true.
Yeah. Well, it's like what I pointed out at the conference that, Romans 11, it doesn't just conclude with, the depths of the riches. There's a continuation from Romans 11 into chapter 12.
A practicality.
There's a practicality. Therefore, by the mercies of God. Why? Because you who obtained mercy shall give them mercy. You shall drive them to jealousy, that through your mercy they shall obtain mercy. That he shall have mercy on them all.
And the realizing that even to be able to offer yourself up as a living sacrifice requires mercy from the Lord to enable for that to be able to be worked out.
And what's the what does it mean to lay down your life as a living sacrifice? And this was the point that I wanted to get at the conference was like, it's not a matter of, I guess we just have to die to self all the time, but laying your life down as a living sacrifice, it's the rest of the book of Romans from chapter 12 through that 15, 16 of the offering of the Gentiles that are sanctified by the Holy Spirit. It starts with sacrifice, ends with sacrifice. Everything between it is telling us.
Chuck had posted in the Love Truth page on Facebook yesterday or the day before, he put something like,
What is humility?
he put something like that truth and humility is going to save us from deception and delusion, and what is true humility. And he put a comment in the middle of the night last night, and it was, I don't have it right up, but it was something along the lines is true humility is putting other needs before your own. Like, that's a living sacrifice. If every day you are given over to the lifting up of everyone else around you above before your own self. And how beautiful is that if you're living in a community where you're doing that for everyone else, but they're doing that for you. Like, you know, it's like we're out trying to out.
And I don't think it's that our idea is to serve one another. Because I think it wasn't Chuck. Oh, Patricia. I talked to her about it. That when we were working in the kitchen at the little conference, that she said something about humility. You know, when we serve in humility, and I'm like, you know, the interesting thing is it doesn't feel like humility. It feels like God said, I want you to do this. And you're so like, I want to share God's heart that I'm willing to do this, you know, and I want to do it. And it feels like, with all the frustration and everything else, it feels like a joy. It doesn't feel like humility. It doesn't feel like I need to be a little more obese or smaller.
The commandments of God are
not the false humility, not the
right
taught humility, if you will, but like really that love, really. So I don't know.
The deferring to one another in love.
I am meek and lowly. I am humble and.
But it is exactly what Jesus says. I think that love the Lord your God with all your heart, your mind, your soul, and your strength. Then love your neighbor as yourself. And they're just, when he was asked for the greatest commandments, he had to give 2 because they were tied together completely.
Because anyone who has seen the Lord loves his brother. That's what John says. And if you're not loving your brother, you don't know the Lord and you don't know the truth.
And it makes sense.
Because you work for the accuser of the brethren.
And it makes sense in the midst of community, you know. When you have somebody getting burned out, it shows that something is wrong, not in them, but in everything. You're either someone or everyone is putting too much on them that it's not their responsibility to carry, or there's not the deference and love that everyone is having to one another. Something is amiss here.
You don't have the biology working correctly.
Right.
You have one cell trying to do everything.
And so,
and it can't fight with just one little cell.
And so when you have a church congregation and the pastors are stressed out of their brains, there's something wrong.
Oh, there's a lot wrong in most of those situations.
Right, but you get what I'm saying. Like, this is not actually community then. This is not actually what the Lord is after. It's not church.
It's not what God has called his people to do and be. But it is not knowing where our substance comes from and working in a way to, we think, honor those who brought it or gave it or whatever, you know, like the first part of Hosea 2, I think that's Hosea 2.
Right.
Yeah, so there's a lot wrong in those cases.
Do you guys think in Hosea 6 that after 2 days he will revive us, on the third day he will raise us up? Do you guys think that there's significance to that as far as a time period?
Yes.
I mean, like how a lot of people assume that it in that is 2 millennia, therefore he's coming back soon.
Right.
And the third day, we're talking millennial reign.
Correct.
It is at least...
And raise us up, meaning resurrection.
It is at least interesting to entertain.
Yeah.
Because he says, don't consider... The Lord is not slack in his promises, as some concern slackness for a day.
It's like 1,000 years. Right. But in the Psalm, it also mentions that 1,000 years is like a day. Kind of reversing it and saying...
Yeah. Well, and I think it depends on from whose perspective you're looking. One is the perspective of God, right? And the other one is the perspective of man.
Okay. I don't have any personal insight to it, and I don't really mind too much as to saying that 2 days is 2,000 years that Jesus died, and then 2,000 years later he returns and all Israel is redeemed.
Well, you also look about when the Israelites crossed the Jordan,
Mm-hmm.
and the priests and the ark
Mm-hmm.
went before them,
Mm-hmm.
and it said that the ark went about 2,000 steps before them.
Hmm.
And that God is so intentional, and each word,
Mm-hmm.
it really carries something. And so there is the high priest, and then they were about 2,000 steps behind before they came into that same ministry.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's a picture of Israel coming into their priesthood.
Okay.
But, and it's just, I'm just throwing it out there. I haven't
Right.
I'm not saying that that's straight from the Lord.
Right.